Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us on DFE News. I'm Jeff Kirk. It's a great day for news. Let's get right to it. Following Israeli airstrikes that killed multiple senior military leaders and destroyed nuclear sites in Tehran on Thursday, Iran launched ballistic missiles in retaliation against Israel. Israeli citizens were ordered to take shelter as Iran launched multiple salvos of ballistic missiles into major population centers. Although Israel's Iron Dome defense system intercepted a majority of the missiles, there were several reported explosions in Tel Aviv. The White House released a statement saying the U.S. was not involved in the strikes on Iran, but reports say they have been assisting Israel in defending against Iranian missiles. People in both countries are taking cover as weapons continue to be launched from both Israel and Iran. Leading Christian advocate for Israel and the Jewish people, Bishop Robert Stearns of Eagle's Wings Ministries had to hunker down in a bomb shelter after Iran's retaliation. He joins us now with reaction from Jerusalem. Thanks so much for joining us, Bishop Stearns. Let's start with your general impressions after the airstrikes. How would you describe the situation on the ground right now?
Well, it's an honor to be with you. We've been in and out of bomb shelters here in Jerusalem for the past 24 hours. There's a tremendous sense that the strikes on Tehran were very effective, but then they've just been able to respond, and we've seen some challenges in Tel Aviv. We've seen buildings hit in Tel Aviv. We've seen approximately 35 people who have been injured. The extent of those injuries is not known. So things are obviously very, very tense here, and there's a strong wondering regarding how much Iran is going to be retaliating.
So why did Israel feel the need to conduct the strikes at this particular moment in time?
Because the hour was 11:59 and 59 seconds. I mean, we were at the point of no return. We've been dealing with an increasingly radicalized Iran going back to the 70s. This is not a problem that has come up in the last year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. This is a 40-year problem. And the past 20-year problem, it's been accelerating into the nuclear field. And Israel and America and Western powers have done everything they can to negotiate with Iran. But in plain view of the whole world, Iran has been, not following through on any of their promises. And so the United Nations itself finally just, I think 24, 48 hours ago, said that the UN was in, or that Iran was in complete breach of the UN agreements. Iran was literally days, if not hours, from nuclear capability. So Israel, on behalf of the world, took the step that needed to be taken.
So in your opinion, will this hurt or help the U.S. negotiations with Iran going forward? Or what does this say about the ongoing relationship between President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu?
Well, I think those are really two separate questions. I think the president's relationship with Netanyahu is strong and clear. The U.S.-Israel alliance is very firm. The issue of the negotiations with Iran, I think that the next 12 to 24 hours are going to show that. If Iran continues to engage in retaliatory strikes, I know that the foreign minister of Iran just wrote a letter to the UN Security Council and said that Iran is now considering what Israel did as a declaration of war. And so if Iran comes fully back on this, well, then Israel is going to strike back even harder. So this, could portend towards the escalation of something that could potentially genuinely be a world war, because Iran sells its oil primarily to China. So the Chinese and the Russians are in collusion with Iran, and this could really set itself up as a very kind of apocalyptic scenario. We also have the fact of the people on the ground. Iranians Um, there is a very strong, sophisticated, educated class of Iranians who do not buy into the extremism of the mullahs and the ayatollahs. And so this could be a moment where we see a toppling of the ayatollahs and the possibility of a new future free Iran. So that remains to be seen. There's just a lot to be looking at over the next 12, 24, 48 hours.
So you mentioned a particular class of Iranian citizen that does not support the Ayatollah. Do you feel that sentiment is shared among the general population, or is that restricted to only a small segment?
Well, I wouldn't say the segment is necessarily small. What you have, I mean, sadly, when you get into the clutches of this radicalized version of Islam, this is what you see in Hamas. This is what you see with the Houthis. It really becomes a level of brainwashing, whatever you want to call it, religious extremism. And once that domino begins, and then you have a generation of children who are raised in this, right? You've got children who are raised and their heroes are not soccer players or movie stars. Their heroes are suicide bombers and terrorists. Well, now you've got a problem because you literally have raised a brainwashed generation. Iran was, really an example a generation ago of a very tolerant, open-minded, almost westernized society. They were culturally Muslim, but they did not practice this radicalized Islam, which took hold with the Ayatollahs. So I don't know, exact percentages, but I do know that, in my opinion, and I don't pretend to be an expert on this, but my armchair view is that the Iranian population has a stronger chance of overthrowing the Ayatollahs and the religious extremism than what I'm seeing, for example, in Gaza, where there really is a population that has been greatly, greatly radicalized.
So you mentioned the possibility of additional strikes. Does it seem that the Israeli Iron Dome defense system seems to be performing well? You mentioned there had been some detonations there on the ground. Do you think it's more a net benefit, or are they having some issues right now?
Well, I was surprised. I was here on October the 7th. I was here then a year later for when Iran sent 200 missiles, and I think only one of them hit the ground. So obviously the system did not perform quite as well as it has in the past. I do know that the U.S., it's being reported that the U.S. was actively taking down missiles as well and assisting Israel in their defense initiatives. It's also reported that Jordan was shooting down drones that were entering their airspace. And of course, that is good news in terms of regional cooperation. So on the whole, I would say the Iron Dome is working obviously quite well. Although it doesn't seem to be performing perfectly, which in the past it seemed to have a near perfect record. So it remains to be seen what is going to come. This is the longest. It's been about 2.5 hours since I've been in the bomb shelter. I've been in the bomb shelter pretty much constantly over the last 24 hours. So we'll see how long this holds.
We heard over the last few days about the U.S. embassies in the region being warned to raise their alert posture. Were there any other indicators that Israel was preparing to conduct strikes when they did?
I would say no. I was with my close friend, Ambassador Huckabee, just hours. I was with him, I guess, 12 hours, 14 hours before the strikes began. We had a wonderful visit together. Israel lives in a state of constant alertness. Israel lives in a state of constant readiness. Sadly, they are forced to. People don't understand what it's like to have to raise your children running to bomb shelters. People see the devastation in Gaza, and those images elicit a very normal human feeling of compassion, a very normal human feeling of sadness for that devastation. But the devastation in Israel would be far worse if Israel did not have the technological advances that it does. And so it begs the question, is Israel at fault simply because it's technologically advanced? Is Israel the bad guy simply because it's more skilled at defending itself? These are the realities that people don't understand unless you get your feet on the ground here.
Well, Bishop Stearns, thank you very much. We greatly appreciate you taking time to speak with us. We hope you can join us again in the future. Please stay safe.
Thank you so much. It's always a privilege and pleasure to be with you, and I encourage everyone to keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our prayers remain with everyone in harm's way in hopes that this does not escalate into a larger regional conflict. The House of Representatives passed the proposed rescissions bill Thursday, which is projected to cut $9.4 billion in U.S. government spending. The bill narrowly passed by a vote of 214 to 212, with 4 Republicans joining Democrats to vote against it. Among the cuts are $8.3 billion of foreign aid, as well as $1.1 billion in cuts to public broadcasting platforms, including NPR and PBS. GOP Representative Thomas Massie of Kentucky, one of the primary critics of the bill, ended up voting for it, saying the effort is a step in the right direction. Representative Massie went on to say that cutting $9 billion won't solve all our budget problems, but he says it's an incredible start, and let's cut more. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. appointed COVID shot critic Dr. Robert Malone to the Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices Wednesday. Prior to appointing Malone to the Vaccine Committee, Kennedy dismissed all 17 previous members, all of whom had been appointed by the Biden administration. Malone thanked Kennedy for the opportunity to serve his country in this way and says he will do his best to serve with unbiased objectivity and rigor. Here's what Malone had to say about the COVID vaccine in 2022.
It's not adequate to only consider the short-term adverse events as related to the vaccine. We must acknowledge that the COVID-19 genetic injections cause far more harm than good and provide zero benefit relative to risk for the young and healthy. They do not reduce COVID-19 infection, which is treatable and not terminal. Furthermore, the most recent data demonstrates that you are more likely to become infected or have disease or even death if you've been vaccinated compared to the unvaccinated people. This is shocking to hear, but it is what the data are showing us. The data now show that these experimental gene therapy treatments can damage your children as well as yourself. They can damage your heart, your brain, your reproductive tissue, and your lungs. This can include permanent damage and disablement of your immune system.
Malone is one of 8 replacements appointed to the advisory committee so far. Christy Walton, the daughter-in-law of Walmart founder Sam Walton, is under fire for funding a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for protests against President Trump. The ad, which referenced the No Kings movement, called for Americans to mobilize to reject authoritarianism on Saturday, the same day as a planned military parade in Washington, D.C. to celebrate the 250th birthday of the U.S. Army. There are currently as many as 1,500 protests planned for Saturday across all 50 states. The Walmart company distanced itself from Christy Walton's actions, saying the ads are in no way connected to or endorsed by Walmart, and that Walton does not play any role in decision-making at the company. A Boeing 787 Dreamliner belonging to India Air crashed just after takeoff in western India on Thursday. Video of the incident shows the aircraft failing to gain altitude, then exploding in a large fireball after crashing into buildings near the airport. There were over 300 on board, and Indian officials are investigating the cause of the crash. Miraculously, one man reportedly survived the crash by jumping out of the exit row door. That's it for now. Thanks for watching DFE News, news done right. See you next time.